Today on the Path Radio Spotlight, we're joined by one of Canada's most respected and enduring songwriters. Mark Jordan's work has traveled across genres and decades. His songs have been recorded by major artists including Rod Stewart, Diana Ross, Chicago, Bonnie Raitt, and more. As a solo artist, he emerged from the West Coast influenced pop era of the 70s and 80s and continues to explore jazz and orchestral sounds today. Now, Mark is sharing his story in Rhythm of My Heart, his authorized biography with Don Brightop, a look at a career spanning more than 5 decades from his beginnings in Brooklyn and Toronto to his recent creative renaissance. We're going to talk about that journey, the stories behind some of his best known songs, what it means to look back on a life in music. Mark Jordan, welcome to the Path Radio Spotlight. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm so looking forward to this. How are you today?
Great to be here. I'm good. I'm good. Very good.
That's fantastic. I'm good too. A little bit of too much snow here right now, but
Oh
otherwise,
man, tell me about it. Yeah.
are you snowed in too?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it's been an interesting few days anyways. So look, Mark, let me ask you, and no pressure to pick one over the other. I'm just, genuinely wanting to get a sense of your journey. So when you look back now, do you feel like that maybe you were shaped more by Brooklyn or maybe more by Toronto? Or is there a specific place or moment in one of those cities that you
well,
recognize,
I didn't grow up in Brooklyn. I grew up in Toronto. I was born in Brooklyn, and my father moved to Toronto when I was quite young. So I wasn't working in Brooklyn, but I did spend a lot of time in New York, and before I moved to LA, I was going to actually move back to New York.
oh,
But I got a deal in Los Angeles, and so that's where I went. But I was profoundly influenced by Toronto because we had the Yorkville folk scene, when I was young, and that was, I remember standing outside of the Riverboat Cafe and listening to Joni Mitchell. Because I couldn't afford to get in, but I could see her through the window, and there was the Young Street Strip in Toronto where between Bloor Street and maybe King Street, there were about 50 clubs, and you could hear Ronnie Hawkins, and you could hear jazz guys down at the Colonial. And um, I remember one night, really cold night, um, walking down, and I heard a voice coming out of a club, and it was David Clayton Thomas. And I froze my ass off that night because I was so blown away by his voice.
you took us down a little bit of nostalgic memory lane there and gave me goosebumps. Not from the cold references either. Toronto wins, by the way. Just I was not a Toronto Rocket thing, but yeah, it's interesting. You said something that really caught my ear and all of that. Aside from the cool people that you got to see, but standing outside listening to the music.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. We were just talking about this the other day. I don't remember with who being able to see acts these days and the cost. And you brought me back to younger teenage years where I listened to Alice Cooper outside of a building. So, but I wonder if we've all done that at some point. Like
Yeah, because you don't have any money. You don't have the money to get in. So if you want to hear something, you got to see, you got to stand outside. In those days, the bands were really loud too, and they always had the doors open because everybody smoked.
Right.
And so you'd stand there and the snow would be coming down and there would be clouds of smoke blowing out of these doors with the music. It was, man,
That's right. We got secondhand smoke standing outside.
yeah. Oh, totally.
Oh, Mark. So look, you've spent your life behind your songs, not behind a microphone talking about yourself, I guess. Um, we're gonna get into your book here. What finally made this feel like the right time to put your story on record in your book, Rhythm of My Heart?
Um, well, actually, Dawn brought it up to me, and we were we were at my cottage, and I was talking, and he's a writer. He's a wonderful musician, as well as a writer, and he wrote a great book on Steely Dan, and quite amazing. Anyway, we were up at my cottage, and we were talking about when I was young and stuff, and he said, you should write a book. And I said, I can't write it. I said, I'd like to, but I can't do it because I'm dyslexic and I'll never get it done. And he said, well, maybe I can help. And so we spent a couple of weeks, and he came back and he brought a cassette player and we just talked for hours and hours and hours. And then he went and wrote the book.
You just mentioned you're dyslexic,
Yeah, very much.
and how does that factor into your songwriting?
Well, it changed me early on because I was streamed into the sort of kids who couldn't function very well in school,
Hmm.
and I couldn't do anything. So I I learned to see the world differently because I had to.
Hmm.
To get information, I couldn't really get it from books. I had to get it from other places. And so I I, I became an observer, I guess. And my father was a singer, so I was in a musical family, and so heard music all the time, and I picked it up by ear because you know for me anything with a stick and a ball like a D, a B, or a quarter note, a half note floats around. So
Hmm.
it was very hard for me to learn to read music even. I can do it, but it's really, really hard. So I developed my ear and then I heard Bob Dylan and I thought, oh, there, I can maybe do this. And not on that level, but you know what I'm saying. I can
Yeah.
certainly play the guitar and so one thing led to another and I became the songwriter I am.
And so then Dawn helps you with the book because of that. But through the years, like is this something that you've shared often or
Oh, not really.
Hmm.
I'm not really. You know, I was very ashamed of it.
Hmm.
Right. They didn't know what it was when I was in school. So I was just labeled as sort of kind of a semi-retarded kind of dude who couldn't
Eh.
get good marks, and but my parents, God bless them, knew I was smart and although they didn't know what it was, why I couldn't do the work, and but I was kind of brutalized in school. I remember my guidance counselor uh, sitting me down and saying, Mark, you have the intelligence of a spider monkey, and I don't know why you're in the school. And that kind of thing doesn't build your self-esteem, if you know.
Not at all. No.
Was
But
it? quite
But
cool.
Mark, back then, this all makes perfect sense. I mean, that's what happened, right? Like
Yeah,
we were
that's what
afraid to
happened.
talk about
Yeah.
certain challenges. For me, like I'm deaf in one ear,
Huh.
and yeah, and people don't know that. They don't see that. So it's one of those things where you get treated a little different because you don't respond the same way that others might
That's right.
respond.
But that can be your superpower as well.
It can. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, well, thank you for sharing that. And times have changed for sure
Yeah,
because now, you know what I mean? There's tools out there and there's opportunity. But I think it's those experiences like you've had that have paved the way for that.
yeah.
Um, Talking about Dawn, as you sat down to shape your life into this narrative, um, was there part of your story that surprised you, whether it's factually or emotionally, like as you were kind of going through the memories with Dawn?
Well, um, in a way, I mean, I had to relive certain things that I had maybe squashed and
Hmm.
and and um kind of pushed to the background and to do with the dyslexia. But my that the kind of shame that was involved with it. And so I struggled it led to substance abuse and that kind of thing. And it 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 affected it affected me that way. And so I used drugs and alcohol to kind of um, get outside myself because I was insecure, and that went on for years, and took me a while. I
So would you say, I mean, I guess we all carry a vision of our past in our heads, Mark. As you reminisce about that, did writing the book make you trust those memories more, or did you begin to question them more?
um well, it was just a revisiting. I
Mm.
don't think either, but I think I would I revisited it, and it was kind of cool. It was good. It was therapeutic in a lot of ways.
Now you mentioned Don, earlier you said, hey, he's a musician himself.
Yeah.
He's also a writer.
Mhm.
So as your biographer, did having Don, like someone who understands the music craft, and know you, shape the way that your story is told in Rhythm of My Heart?
Definitely, because Don, you know, he understands the language, and he understands, if I was going for something and didn't quite know how to say it, Don helped me out, and he's done this before. I think he's written two or three. I mean, he wrote as I said before, the Donald Fagen one, and that was a really great book, and apparently, and um, so he was no stranger to this, and it was and he'd also played with me in bands and stuff, so we knew each other pretty well.
Um, I've danced around in the Brooklyn and Toronto thing a little bit here already, and you set the record straight, saying, "Hey, I grew up in Toronto." But some might say the book goes back to Brooklyn and Toronto, perhaps in a textured way, vivid, layered. There's some sensory, there's some personal, story rich. When you re-entered those places on the page, um, what did you realize about how they're still in your music today? Like, is Brooklyn and Toronto in your music today?
Well, my father's in my music, and he was the constant in my life. So he you know, I looked really to his career, and and although he was sort of he had some problems with his career in that he was sort of caught up in the McCarthy era, and he was a left wing kind of guy, and um, suddenly he couldn't get sponsors, you know, for his shows, and that was in radio. So that's why we moved to Toronto, and and he did pretty well here, and after a while he became a, you know, the go-to sort of singing teacher in Toronto. But he always said things that were prophetic, and I'll share one with you. And this was an important one for me. He said, if you want to learn how to sing a lyric, listen to women. Listen how women sing lyrics. They sing them differently than men do. And he was absolutely right. He said, listen to Ella and listen to Billie Holiday. And those were very important things for me, because I learned so much from those wonderful records, you know, those early Billie records, and Ella and Nina Simone, and I learned a lot, and I loved that music, you know, even before I heard rock and roll, I loved that music. Yeah.
Mark, what is it about listening to the woman sing the lyric? Can you give us some more insight on that?
Well, I think they're more emotionally invested in words than men are. That's my feeling, is that the lyrics, like men, I think, get into the structure of singing a little more, and women abandon themselves to words.
Would you say then, um, part of being a lyricist, there's a certain romance to it?
Well, perhaps, but the thing about lyrics for me is that I don't consider myself a lyricist. I I write, yeah, I write entire songs, but I always, even when I'm working with people who do tracks, I always do the melody and the lyric. I can't really write a lyric to somebody else's melody, because for me, the lyric and melody are the same thing.
Hmm.
And um, they melody is a language. And if the melody is not saying the same thing that the lyric is saying, you got a problem. And I think you might not, the listener may not know what it is. It's not right, but they know it's something in there.
So uh you're leading me into the into my next question, because I'm trying to sit here and picture, you're doing the melody and the lyrics at the same time. Now, I can sit down and I can write, or I can pick up a guitar and I can strum some chords and make something. I'm trying to picture doing both at the same time, unless I'm, humming it in my head. But you've described visualizing music in three dimensions, and I'm trying to picture what that is like. When you're actually building a song, if you're at a piano, What are you seeing in that moment? Like, is that what you're talking about? Like, is it structure? Is it movement? Is it color? Can you put us in the seat
It's a
of what
movie.
you see?
It's like a movie for me.
Hmm.
And I've heard some people say they see it in color, or they see colors and things. I don't see colors. I see a movie, and um, I so it unfolds for me, and it's a hard process to really verbalize, but I see music as as a movie. I when I listen, I see it as a story, and then I try to write that story.
So, and I'm gonna ask about the song "Rhythm of My Heart." So, "Rhythm of My Heart," that was a movie that played out.
Yeah, that was a that was a song about a guy who's in some kind of war sort of conflict area, and he's just dreaming of home, and with all that entails, dreaming of the people, dreaming of someone he loves,
Hmm.
dreaming of getting back there, but really being stuck in a place that is quite the opposite from where he wants to be.
When you hear that song now, do you hear the hit song, or do you hear that original private feeling that might have led you to write it as you described it?
When I was writing that song, I came up with I was playing the piano and I came up with the chorus and the lyric. And I knew that I didn't know it was a hit song, but I knew it was, uh, there was something really cool about it. And it really grabbed me because it was very vivid in my head. And and it was really my the publisher in London, Rob Dickens, who thought, wow, this could be something for Rod Stewart. And we and I don't know why, but we put a bagpipe player on the original demo. Try to find a bagpipe player in Hollywood. It's not easy.
No, I can't imagine it would be.
He said, "Do you
Uh,
want me to bring my kilt?"
do you
I,
have one?
he said it'll be an extra $25. I said, leave your kilt at home. Bring your pipe,
You
baby.
were budgeting back then too, right? With the kid.
Totally.
You mentioned Rod Stewart. So you've written multiple songs for Rod Stewart.
I'm
Uh,
working with him now, actually.
yeah, I thought I read that somewhere. You're doing some more work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the relationship with Rod teach you about what makes a song feel, if I can use the word inevitable to a singer, but in this, what makes it inevitable to Rod? Like, what could you impart on us in terms of that?
Well, he likes emotionality. He likes it to be direct and simple. I mean, he comes from that R&B world, but he also comes from folk songs, from a folk thing, like British folk songs. And so uh, I was I was lucky because I also my father loved folk songs. He collected them all over the world. And I heard all those folk songs as a kid, Irish folk songs and Scottish folk songs and the the field recordings of old blues guys down south, in the cotton fields and so I heard all that. My father had all that stuff. So it was that I understood that idiom pretty well.
Hmm.
And I could I don't know. I guess it kind of connected with Rod.
So do you make adjustments then? If you like whether it's Rod or someone else, do you change your approach based on if you know you're going to write for someone?
I don't write for anybody.
Hmm.
I never have. I can't, I don't know how to do it.
You just write.
Yeah. And I had a very smart publisher, Judy Stakey in LA, and she signed me to Warner Chappell in the early 80s, and she was very smart. She knew that I couldn't, like, there were a lot of writers on staff there that would go, uh, you know, singer
Mm.
XYZ, they're looking for songs, and we need that. We need it by Wednesday, and they can do it. I mean, it's blows my mind. But I don't have that skill. I don't have that talent. I just have to write songs that are meaningful that and hold together for me. And then if that's the case, I know they'll resonate with other people.
I'm trying to digest that. Thinking,
Well, we're all human beings, are we not? It's
yeah, I would hope so. Although, there's some questionable things going on in the world today,
there's
but
a few people that
yeah,
I wouldn't be writing songs for
yeah.
in the White House, but those are,
We went there. We just went there. If you look, okay, let me ask you about another song, Marina Del Rey.
yeah.
It's a bit breezy, it's a bit cinematic. Is there anything more complicated? Like, is there a more complicated emotional truth behind it, or is it just as casual as it sounds, maybe to some listeners? Or I love that
Well,
song. I just
it
wanna-
it 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 that was a funny song because on the on the trip from the airport, the first time I went down to LA, when I got the call from Mo Austin, they picked me up at the airport, and on the way to the Universal City, where they put me up in a hotel, I passed a sign that said Marina Del Rey next exit. And I thought, wow, what an incredible name. And I thought, unfortunately, I seem to have landed in Mexico, but could be a problem. But anyway, it was Los Angeles, and I got to the hotel, and I just remember it just I don't know, a light went off when I read that Marina Del Rey. It just rolled off the tongue, and it was the fastest song I've ever written in my life, and I didn't know anything about it.
Ah, that's awesome. I used to, when I was younger, I used to have this little book, and whenever I travel somewhere, I would see some road signs or whatever I would see, and I would just write these little titles in the book, and sometimes I would write poems or something about it, but it's just interesting that that's how it came to be. Um,
That it was something that also um, kind of made it genre specific as we used Jimmy Buffett's steel drum player, and that gave it that kind of you know feel.
that zest, or maybe zest isn't the right word, but I know what you mean. That
Yeah,
that feel. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That sound.
Eh. I enjoy that. I enjoyed that song, and thought I'd throw that in there. Um, Looking back on your West Coast years, are there things from that era of your sound that you still love? And are there things that you feel like you've moved on from in terms of writing or
Well, um, yeah, it's changed for me over the years uh, as I um, kind of got away from that tight, sort of beautifully played, button down sound, and nothing the matter with it. But I was after something a little looser, a little more raw, a little something I could take more liberties singing and um, and then inevitably that leads to a different kind of lyric as well. So I started writing about different things.
um if I can lead into maybe your more recent albums, Both Sides, and then in 2023, Waiting for the Sun to Rise, you explore jazz, orchestra. It's much more deep than some of your earlier work. What draws you to those musical spaces right now or at this stage?
Well, that was, as I mentioned before, that was sort of my roots. That's
Mm,
where I came from. Even before I
mm,
heard much rock and roll, I heard Ella and
mm.
all that stuff. And I love it. So I always listen to jazz. I mean, I love it. And so I know the genre and I love writing it. And so I started working with some people who were more jazz oriented and like Steve McKinnon and Lou Pamonti. And
Now, when you say jazz and you love jazz, like, are we talking Thelonious Monk jazz? Like,
I love that
yeah,
totally. Very
different.
difficult,
Thelonious Monk was just
difficult
he
to
was one of
write a
my favorite.
lyric over something like that, though.
Yeah, I don't know that. Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just all over, but so together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Mark, what's your favorite thing about this book?
Well, it's a, it's a very hard to appreciate your own life when you're in it.
Hmm.
And it's allowed me to step outside of it. And my kids have read it, and I think they liked it. And my son is reading the audiobook. And it's so I'm just as a family thing, it's been amazing. And I don't know. It's hard for me to say. But I hope um, it may give a little roadmap to some people who are starting on the journey in any of the arts. Really, I suppose it's all the same, and the principles are the same. But you can't go to school to learn how to stick with it and to be in it and be it and make it a success. There's no way to learn that
Hmm.
in a course. You have to read my book.
You mentioned earlier your father and what he meant to you,
Yeah,
music wise, and through your development. What would he say about the book?
he'd love it. I
Is
think
that important to you?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, he's very important to me.
Did Don have to convince you of anything particular when you guys put the book together to say, yes, Mark, yes, we're telling that story. Yes, it's a good story. Yes, you were that good, you know? Um,
Well, he guided me. Like I wasn't going to talk about my substance abuse or any of that stuff because I didn't think that was germane to the journey, but now I see it is.
yeah.
And so so that was good. And it was good for me too. It was good for me to talk about it. You know, I that those were cocaine days, baby, and there was a lot of blow around Los Angeles in the
Yeah.
early 80s, and and the people I worked with were way into it, and I got into it, and you know, and then of course you'd have to.
Was it more commonplace? Like if you look at the scene back then versus what we may or think we know today, was that just the thing to do?
Well, that's for a while.
Yeah.
Then it cleaned up, but it got really nuts there. Like I my last day doing it and then drinking to come down. Jay Graydon did my Blue Desert record, and he's a um, nocturnal.
Hmm.
He goes to bed about 7 in the morning,
Wow.
and so he works all night. And Al Jarreau, he was doing Al Jarreau's record, and he would work with Al. Al would be there till about 4 in the morning doing stuff, and I used to I was good friends with Jay and still am actually, and so I always hang in around if like I love Al and but one night uh I we were just wrecked, and I started giving Al singing lessons, and so on the way back home on the freeway I started reflecting on that. I thought that was pretty out there because he's a pretty amazing singer. And I thought, you're out of control, baby. And yeah,
That was the turning point. You talk about it in the book?
yeah.
Awesome. So we get more details. We get more details on that in the book.
There
Sounds
are more
sounds intriguing.
details to that story.
And
Yeah.
life lessons that maybe, some of us can take away and leverage. Um, how did you divide the book up? Can you tell us that? Just as we're heading towards the bottom stretch of this, how did you divide the book up? Is it
Well, it's
you know,
chronological. I
oh,
mean,
simply total chronology, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, basically.
Not music or event or anything like that.
No, starts at the beginning and ends at the end.
Ends it to be continued, Mark.
Oh yeah, to be continued. I'm not dead, right? I was looking at myself in the monitor and thinking, oh, perhaps I am dead.
We threw a little comedy in there. Uh, Look, if someone reads Rhythm of My Heart and then goes back to your songs, what do you hope they understand about you that they didn't before? Maybe not as a legend, perhaps, even though you are, but as a working songwriter, artist, etc.
Well, that's a good question. I've never really thought about it. Um, I I don't know that I can really answer that. I hope my songs speak for themselves, and I guess the takeaway is that I always did it for the right reasons. I never compromised. I never tried to shoehorn something in to to make someone else happy. I did it. I always did it to my own specs, and I think you almost have to, um, if you're the kind of writer you know,
When you started, and I guess wherever we start, whatever journey we're on, we tend to do it for ourselves first.
yeah.
You mentioned family a few times. Do you still do it for you, or do you do it, did you end up doing it for family, or do you do it for family, etc.? Did it change?
It never changed, but I I I get a great deal of pleasure out of seeing my kids, my daughter, my son, being able to do music, and my son helps me with stuff, and my daughter is brilliant, and she sings like incredibly, and so that gives me a lot of joy, and yeah, it's just, and they're also very uncompromising, and they do it for the right reasons, and they don't chase celebrity, they just want to do music.
You've been reading my mind a couple of times as I'm asking you the questions because I was gonna go there and say, do they look at dad and say, Dad's Mark Jordan, or well, Dad's Mark Jordan, and we're just doing the thing that we do together. Is there anything else you want to tell us as we close things out, as we close the show out?
Um, uh, I'll tell you one thing. I have a titanium rod in my back,
Oh, wow. We're giving out secrets.
and the week I came home from getting that, I got a call from Rod Stewart. So every time he doesn't call me for a couple of years, I'm going to get another rod put in my back.
We close it out with Rod. That was Mark Jordan on the Path Radio Spotlight. His new authorized biography, Rhythm of My Heart, written with Don Breithaupt, is available now. A fascinating look inside a life spent shaping some of the most memorable songs of the last 5 decades. Of course, you can learn more at markjordan.com. Follow Mark on all of his social media accounts, which I'll have in the show notes. Whether you know his work through his own recordings or the many artists who've interpreted his songs, it's clear Mark's influence runs deep through the music we love and his love for his father and family. Mark, thank you for taking the time to share your story with us today. I hope we catch up again. Take care.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.